Which zodiac signs have the hardest life? There are zodiac signs that have to endure much more trials than others. Their path is difficult, filled with internal crises, non-recognition, losses, and a constant struggle for the right to be themselves. They often turn out to be stronger than others, but only because life makes them tempered, like metal in fire. This video is about those whose souls go through pain to become a light for others. These signs have a special mission, and that is why they are given more trials. But with suffering comes growth. With rejection comes wisdom. With loneliness comes invincible strength. Watch carefully, and maybe you will understand why your life turned out this way. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are looking for not just a horoscope, but answers to questions that have been bothering you for a long time. And write in the comments whether what you heard resonated with you. And now, let's figure out which signs of the zodiac were chosen for the most difficult, but the greatest path. The first sign is Leo. The life of Leo often looks bright and confident, but behind this external brilliance there is an internal struggle that few can understand. From childhood, representatives of this sign feel the need to prove their importance, demonstrate strength, take on more than their resources allow. Their path is rarely easy. They are not given the right to weakness. Others demand confidence, stability, and leadership from them. Leo has no opportunity to retreat, because he is always responsible for himself and for others. Each of his achievements is accompanied by resistance. Any success is the result of overcoming internal and external pressure. He moves forward when others have already stopped, because he cannot afford to fall. His life is filled with constant tension. He must be an example, keep up appearances, control emotions, inspire, lead. And even in moments of loneliness, he remains in the role, because he is afraid that if he loosens his grip, everything around him will collapse. Leo often faces envy, hidden resistance, and attempts to discredit his achievements. He has to prove not only to himself, but also to the world that he is worthy of respect. He perceives any doubt from others as a blow to his self-esteem. And in order to protect himself, he learns not to show pain, not to complain, not to ask for help. He turns into a lone warrior who goes against the current with a straight back and a raised head, hiding internal wounds behind external fortitude. The difficulty of his life is that he cannot be himself to the fullest. He is forced to constantly comply, maintain a level, be strong even when he just wants to be silent. He does not allow himself to break down, even if he feels that he can no longer. His difficulties are not so much external as internal. He lives under the pressure of expectations, imposed roles, and a high personal bar that no one has set except himself. The second sign is Virgo. Representatives of this sign live with a constant feeling that everything needs to be controlled, corrected, improved. Their reality is never calm. Virgo is always one step ahead, in deeds, thoughts, worries. Her life is an endless analysis, where even a small mistake turns into a catastrophe. Her mind never stops working. She notices what others ignore. This makes her effective, but at the same time vulnerable and exhausted. Virgo's life is difficult because she does not know how to relax. Her nature requires constant concentration. She cannot afford spontaneity, because a self-control mechanism works inside. Everything should be in its place, in the house, in relationships, and in her head. But reality does not adapt to her system. This is where a constant internal conflict is born, between how it should be and how it actually is. Every day for Virgo is a struggle with chaos, which she feels especially acutely. Her soul asks for order, predictability, honesty, and life gives her mistakes, uncertainty, and people who do not correspond to her values. She does not know how to close her eyes to imperfection, so she often lives with constant irritation and tension. She cannot help but think. Even rest becomes a task for her that needs to be properly organized. It is difficult for Virgo in relationships. She demands a lot from herself and expects the same from others. But those around her are not able to live by her standards. This leads to loneliness, a feeling of misunderstanding, emotional burnout. She tries, puts in effort, helps, but rarely receives the same degree of return. Her difficulties are not flashy, not external, but deeply personal. This is an exhausting perfectionist war with herself and the world, in which there are almost no breaks. The third sign is Aries. The fate of Aries rarely gives easy roads. This sign seems to be placed in conditions of constant resistance from birth. He must break through, fight, prove. No one gives him anything for free, and, most importantly, he does not wait. He is used to the fact that the path to the goal is a struggle. His difficulties are not an accident, but the norm with which he lives every day. He does not complain, but almost always goes through obstacles. The life of Aries is an eternal race. He cannot stop, even if he is tired. His internal engine works without a break. He does not know how to give up, even if everything collapses. This makes him strong, but also vulnerable. His energy often collides with the indifference of the world, with misunderstanding, with closed doors. He continues to fight, but each such wall leaves a mark. And the older he gets, the deeper these marks inside. It is difficult for Aries to be in a world that works slowly. He lives quickly, feels sharply, reacts instantly. This creates conflicts, misunderstandings, loneliness. It often seems to him that no one shares his pace, that he is alone against everyone. And in this feeling, he continues to go, not because he wants to, but because he does not know how to do otherwise. He lives with the idea that everything depends only on him. This thought makes him independent, but also overloaded. He does not look for easy ways. But the problem is that even when they appear, he does not trust them. His experience has taught him, if it is easy, then there is a catch. His soul is tense, his reactions are quick, his defense is always on. He himself becomes the cause of his hard life, because he cannot allow himself to relax, accept help, slow down. He is always in battle, and this battle is the most difficult part of his destiny. The fourth sign is Gemini. Geminis face life differently than others. Their minds are restless. They are constantly in motion, analyzing, disassembling, searching, connecting and breaking again. It is this activity that becomes not a privilege, but a burden. Outwardly, it seems that Geminis easily maneuver between situations, as if they are playfully getting out of dead ends. But few people understand, behind this ease is hidden a constant struggle with internal overload. Their life is not physically difficult, it is intellectually and emotionally difficult. They get tired of themselves. One of the main difficulties of Geminis is the inability to switch off. It is difficult for them to stop the flow of thoughts, feelings, ideas. Even in a state of rest, they do not rest. In their heads, conversations, options, analysis of other people's phrases, their own memories, comparisons, fears, ideas that are not realized. This creates a feeling of endless internal pressure. The brain does not give silence. It is difficult for them to be here and now. They live in parallel lines, simultaneously in the past, future, fantasy and reality. People around them think that Geminis are superficial, but this is a mistake. Superficiality is a defense mechanism. If they delve into every emotion, thought and feeling, they will get sucked in. Therefore, they leave many things at the level of lightness, jokes, irony. But inside them, there is an intense struggle. They do not always know what they feel. Their feelings are layered, one on top of the other, and it is almost impossible to determine where the truth is. The difficulties of Geminis are especially evident in the sphere of relationships. It is difficult for them to find those who can withstand their changeability. They are sincere, but fickle. They love, but get lost. They want stability, but feel trapped at the slightest hint of routine. It is difficult for them to be with someone, because they are not sure who they are. Their inner duality gives rise to constant internal conflicts, which are then reflected outside. Hence, problems with trust, with self-determination, with building long-term relationships. They also face misunderstandings. It is difficult for them to be taken seriously, because they often hide depth behind a joke. They are not believed that they are in pain, because they laugh. They are not trusted that they suffer, because they are active. And this is what makes their life especially difficult. They are forced to cope alone. Help does not come, because no one sees the problem. Another facet of their internal complexity is the constant feeling that everything is wrong. Everything seems to be fine, but inside there is emptiness. They can achieve goals, communicate, build a career, but suddenly they feel, it all makes no sense. An anxious feeling arises that they are not living their own life, that somewhere their real I has been lost. These are crises that happen to Geminis not once in a lifetime, but almost regularly. It is difficult for them to maintain motivation. Interest quickly fades, inspiration slips away. They can fall in love with a project, a person, an idea, and a week later feel that it's all gone. And each time it's perceived as a personal collapse. Geminis devalue themselves, reproach themselves for instability, but they don't understand. Their consciousness is too complex to be tied to one thing for long. The difficult life of Geminis is not in events, but in their perception. They live in a world where everything should be deeper, more honest, sharper. And when reality turns out to be flat, they begin to suffer. They do not tolerate falsehood, but are often forced to exist in an environment where everything is based on half-truths. This is exhausting, and if they do not find inner support, do not learn to accept their changeability as a gift, and not as a curse, their path will be full of doubts, worries and loneliness. The fifth sign is Sagittarius. The life of Sagittarius gives a feeling of flight, but at the same time it is he who falls from great heights more often than others. This sign seems to be created for moving forward, for expanding boundaries, for taking risks. However, behind the external activity hides one of the heaviest internal structures. Sagittarius faces a harsh need to constantly justify his nature, to be strong, to be bright, to be a winner. And when he cannot be like that, destruction begins. The most difficult part of Sagittarius' life is the internal conflict between his expectations and reality. He believes in more. He cannot stand limitations. He intuitively feels that he was born for large-scale tasks. But reality does not always give him the opportunities he strives for. And then the struggle with the system, with the rules, with himself begins. Sagittarius is an idealist, but it is idealism that becomes the source of disappointment. He sets the bar higher than possible, and when he does not achieve it, he collapses into self-criticism. Society demands constant energy, positivity, movement from him. But Sagittarius is not a machine. His soul needs rest, a pause, silence. But he rarely allows himself to stop. It seems to him that if he slows down, he will lose himself. But in fact, he simply burns out. His fire is not endless. His enthusiasm is not a perpetual motion machine. But he lives as if he is obliged to be a source of light for everyone. Another facet of complexity is the loneliness of the leader. Sagittarius often finds himself in the role of a mentor, an inspirer, a leader. They listen to him, follow him, ask his advice. But who supports Sagittarius himself? Often, no one. He is forced to keep up appearances even when inside there is complete emptiness. He cannot allow himself to be weak, because he is afraid of losing authority. And this internal isolation becomes his cross. The complexity of Sagittarius is also in the fact that he feels the need to prove his right to freedom. He can agree to compromises, but inside there is always a rebellion seething. He does not tolerate pressure, and life often puts him in a framework. Work, family, society, everything requires obedience from him. And then he begins to fight with circumstances, often losing more than he gains. His path is always associated with risk, but not because he is frivolous, but because he cannot live any other way. He faces tough life challenges exactly when it seems that everything is under control. In the life of Sagittarius, there almost always comes a moment when everything collapses at once: relationships, work, inner core. This is not an accident. These are the breakdowns inherent in his nature, to destroy in order to create. He is not able to live in a stable environment. As soon as everything becomes predictable, he loses interest and subconsciously starts the process of destruction. And one more feature. Sagittarius finds it difficult to accept someone else's point of view if it does not coincide with his inner vision. He feels the truth intuitively and can be adamant. This causes conflicts, isolation, a feeling that he is not understood. His truth is often above the social context. He thinks globally, but lives in a limited reality, and in this constant clash with limitations, he is tempered, but also exhausted. The life of Sagittarius is a constant tension between the inner fire and the outer reality, between the dream and reality, between the desire to be oneself and the need to play a role. And this makes his path one of the most difficult, intense, but also truly great.